Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. We got some football coming this weekend. Coming at you. NFL action. Bro, there was a poll on Twitter I saw, and it was like, which do you prefer? Right? This is from a fantasy football page. Of course, It was like at Devi something. Devi is the main. If you don't know what Devi is, Google it. I don't really care to explain. But either way, they said, which do you prefer? College football or NFL? The poll heavily went NFL. It was like 90-10.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Yeah. So, but there were some people who do Devi content that retweeted. I'm like, this is unfortunate. I'm like, why? Does you follow the NFL mostly? Either way, thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, if
I don't know if it's because we're.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't know if it's because we're from the Northeast, but to us, college football is like, it's like the 10th sport. I'll give it more than that. It's not the 10th sport because it's still like football, but like, it's like 4 major sports. People will watch golf. People will watch soccer.
Yeah, maybe not soccer.
Yeah.
I watch college football over soccer. Maybe
I think March Madness is bigger than the college football playoff. Would you agree?
That's a tough one. Maybe.
It is tough, yeah. I don't know.
So many people down south. I don't even want to try to compete with that.
I know. But then it depends where you're from, because some places college football is like number 2.
That's
or
fair.
Number 1.
I just don't know. Unless you go to a college, or you
a college football school
near a college football school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to root for anybody.
True.
You live in New England, right?
I mean, you root for
the Pats.
Right.
Oh, I like Alabama, but
of course you do.
I watch them faithfully? No.
Alabama.
I used to like Clemson too. It's not
Just
like I completely ignore it. I mean, obviously it's a part of what I do for analysis, but
no, I watch it sometimes, but I just watch it for specific players. Like, I don't watch college football to watch college football.
No, that's true. You treat college football like people treat the NBA.
Yeah, pretty much.
But anyway, welcome to Jimmy's Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Warren Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. And today we're going to bring you trade targets for Week 9. Week 9 trade targets. This is a fantastic show this week.
Mm-hmm.
I love
it's
trade
good time to make
targets.
some trades.
People like trades. I don't know. Trades are fun. Trades are, it's a rush. You make a trade and then instant regret.
Yeah.
Instant regret warms over. Like, was that a good idea? Why did I do that?
Yep.
Did that this week with you, Rick.
You did.
I traded for A.J. Brown because I'm a guy, but I traded away Javonte and DJ Moore. Probably not the best idea.
No, because I thought the same thing. I was like, I really just traded A.J. Brown.
Your soul felt ripped out. You both feel like you lost. See, that's the thing. That's when you know it's a good trade, when you both feel like you lost.
Right.
So anyway, we're going to give you trade targets for Week 9. Before we jump into that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Search us, find us. If you're listening on Instagram. You're not listening to us on Instagram. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, leave a review, share this pod with your friends. If you're watching YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and then comment down below any questions you have about trades. We can give you some trade grades. We can give you some advice on whether you should make a trade, whatever you want. Just comment.
Trade grades.
Trade grades. Trade of the week. Send us your trades, and we'll give you a trade grade live on the show.
I do it.
I 100% would do it. I'll tell you exactly why you shouldn't be making that deal. Or I'll go on some pages on the internet that I have for fantasy football. Just find some trades and we'll grade them on the show. Trade grades.
I think that's actually pretty funny.
That would be hilarious. Just unwarranted analysis of people's trades. We go through all of our leagues and just pick out people who made a trade and roast them.
That actually would be really funny. We should do that.
That'd be fantastic. Oh, man. But anyway, let's start with the trade targets for week 9. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
So first on the trade target list is Josh Jacobs. And Rick kind of had some malfeasance about this guy. I don't know if that's the right word. Probably not, but I like the way it sounded, so I used it anyway.
Yeah.
But he had a little bit of hesitation on Josh Jacobs being on the trade targets list. Can you give the devil's advocate of why you think that? Well, no, you're not the devil. You're the devil. You're not an advocate of the devil. You are straight not liking Josh Jacobs right now. So tell us what your thoughts are on Josh Jacobs and why you kind of scoffed at Josh Jacobs being on this list.
Okay, I mean, you kind of convinced me, otherwise, because I was on the fence about it, but you made some decent points. But what I would just say is, I think so far this year he hasn't been that great. Fantasy wise, he's been pretty solid. He's actually been pretty good fantasy wise, but it's because he's been filled with touchdowns. He has 5 rushing touchdowns in 5 games. I don't know if that's going to continue. I don't think he finishes the year with 16 touchdowns. So there's going to be weeks where he doesn't score touchdowns, and what is he going to do in those weeks? He had 8 against the Chargers is the only week that he hasn't scored a touchdown, which wasn't great. And I think that's kind of where he's going to be in a couple weeks. But I mean, he's still getting the volume, so that's very good. He is only rushing 3.4 yards a carry this year, which is disgusting. But yeah, as long as he gets the volume, I think he'll be fine. And his end of season schedule, though, I will say, and this is probably why you put him on this list, but it's very good. It's very good.
Yeah, and I'm not I'm not a massive advocate of Josh Jacobs where I'm like running to the door and pounding the table and being like, Josh Jacobs is going to be the greatest running back since Derrick Henry. But I do think that, wow, all of that I was just saying was picked up in a text message bubble because my phone thought I was supposed to be listening.
Oh, good job.
Yeah. The first things it said was John Elway, so it knew I was talking about football. But anyway.
Even though it got everything completely wrong.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway, Josh Jacobs doesn't even sound like John Elway Siri. But anyway. So yeah, Josh Jacobs, I think, he obviously has been dealing with some injuries this year, like he always does. And in the first game of the season, he only had 10 carries and 11 touches, which is disgusting, but he scored 2 touchdowns. The big thing about Josh Jacobs that you're going to have to deal with is, especially in those first game, that first game of the season, I believe they were losing to Baltimore, so it wasn't really like a run-heavy game to begin with, which is obviously not going to be good for Josh Jacobs. But
yeah,
he is their unwarranted, unfiltered goal line back. And that's the opportunities that he gets. Like, there were games last year. There was like 2 games last year, I believe, that he scored 3 touchdowns. Or something like that. Let me pull it up so I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had 4 multi-touchdown games last year. And he scored total on the season, I think 13. 11 to 13 touchdowns. Yeah, I'm just going to say
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. And this year so far he has 5. So he's the guy that if they get in the goal a lot, they're going to hand it to Jacobs and Jacobs gets in. Like, it's not like he doesn't get in. And he's a guy that could end up, if he plays a full season obviously, or he plays the rest of the way, he's a guy that could easily score, at any given moment for the Raiders. Now, Rick did bring up and I don't disagree with him because I've had this thought in the past, but when you look at games that he's played over the last couple weeks and you take away the touchdown, right? It doesn't look great for him, in a fantasy matchup. So, what does he score? 8 points a game?
Yeah.
Something like that over the last 3
like
weeks.
8 points a game. Yeah.
But he was getting a target share of 15 and 14, around 15% in weeks 4 and 5, where he had 5 targets a game. And that's, I mean, it wasn't good production coming from him, but that's a good target share to have. And he didn't get much against Denver, and then against Philadelphia, he went out and he was on pace for that similar target share. I told Rick before the show, against Philly, he had six carries, 29 yards, 3 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown overall in the game. A rushing touchdown, not a receiving touchdown. I said that in the wrong order. But anyway, that was with 36% snap percentage, and he missed the game after like the first quarter. And so my big thing with Josh Jacobs is I wanted to see, I was a little bit nervous, but I wanted to see how they utilized him differently than they did when they had John Gruden. Not that John Gruden was destroying Josh Jacobs, but do they give him the ball more in the game because John Gruden was finding these running backs, and, you know, I don't know what he was trying to do with Josh Jacobs, but they wouldn't really use him until the goal line, and it was a weird situation. And he was getting some carries, but he was on pace in that game for like 25 carries against Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And as Rick said, against New England, New York, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Dallas, Washington, and Kansas City again. Those are 6 easy matchups for a running back. And then Cleveland, Denver, and Indianapolis are a little bit tougher down the playoff stretch, but I think there have been games where he's had tough matchups and he's been able to have success. And at that point, once you get a running back rolling and get his confidence up, he might be able to have some good games in the postseason. But either way, I think this is a good midseason addition to your team because it provides some upside and the ability to possibly win some games. So hopefully, obviously, I think his chest contusion doesn't matter. He enters the week completely healthy and there's no problems with him. So hopefully we'll see more of Josh Jacobs, but I think that's why he's a good buy at this point.
I think it's fair. He is a good buy. And I've said this before on the show a couple times, but I think it deserves to be said again. The running back position stinks this year.
Yeah.
It does. Go get a running back that is going to be consistent.
I've had multiple people ask me about Josh Jacobs in multiple leagues that I have him in. And it's like, keep coming back. But anyway, let's move to the next guy. It is Michael Pittman Jr., and Michael Pittman has been monstrous the last 2 weeks. Touchdown, catches. The last 4 weeks, okay? He had a bad game against Houston, 4 points. Take that out. Weeks 5, 7, and 8. 17, 18, 25. 4 touchdowns down that stretch. Last week, he had 2 touchdowns against Tennessee. His playoff stretch, and the stretch that you need to get into the playoffs, he's got an easy schedule against Tampa Bay, Houston, New England, Arizona, and then Las Vegas. The next couple weeks, he has the Jets and Jacksonville, which aren't scary opponents. I would not scoff at that.
We pre-recorded the show, so we'll see what he did against the Jets.
That is fair.
But,
another guy I put on the show. But but against Buffalo, that's going to be a tougher matchup for him, but they clearly have been getting him the ball. And the big thing is, there are some games I don't understand. There are some games where he has there's 3 games this year where he had 4 targets or under. And then there are 4 games this year where he had 3 games this year where he had 12 or more targets. What?
It makes no sense.
What is going on?
So inconsistent.
It really is.
But with the injuries to the Colts offense right now, that could mean that Pittman's going to continue to get that huge target share. Yeah. My guess is that he is. And it's kind of a buy high because of how good he's been the last few weeks. And again, we don't know anything that happened Thursday night's game, but I'm going to assume that he played well. Yeah. And it is a buy high, but it's worth it. If he
doesn't, then it's a buy low.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it'll be worth it because he's kind of emerging right now as at least high-end wide receiver 2. And the guy who owns him in fantasy, especially if it's redraft, probably just treats him like a flex player. A good flex player, but still like a flex player. And you can get a solid trade-off for him. And he's a good player to pick up right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, the wide receiver position right now is not too hard to buy into, especially for guys who are kind of breaking out. You know what I mean? Like, we're not sure about Pittman right now. Like, I believe in Pittman. I wanted to draft Pittman in drafts, but there's been some games where he hasn't been great, and there's some games that he's been really, really good. And it's like, we'll see if that continues and if Carson Wentz can continue getting him the ball. But the big thing is that because of his inconsistent play, there's not people going to the door and knocking it down and saying, oh my God, I absolutely need this player. So he's a guy that you could definitely buy. It's not going to cost you too much. And even if it is after Thursday Night Football, a buy high, how much is it a high buy? You know?
Yeah, true.
So anyway, I would definitely get him on your team. And then, like I said, last year I learned something very, very important about fantasy football, and it's that you have to get into the playoffs to win.
Yeah.
So that's important. But I think people take too much for granted not getting into the playoffs, but like the reality that they build their whole, like, I built my roster last year in our home league for the postseason, and I sacrificed regular season wins to do it and just barely missed the playoffs. But my postseason run against everyone in the postseason, I beat every team every single week. And so, my postseason schedule was fantastic, and I worked it out, and I had a great postseason team. I didn't make the playoffs. Don't matter. Didn't win a championship. So, getting those, week 16, 17, 15, those good matchups in those weeks, that's important. But I think getting good matchups in week 11, 12, 13, 14 is important as well, because you're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. And if you lose those games, you might lose your playoff spot. So that's just my thought with Michael Pittman. He doesn't have the greatest, well, actually his schedule, is that Josh Jacobs or is it Michael Pittman? Yeah, Michael Pittman's like championship schedule is not great, but his week 12, 13 matchups are really good, and I think he can get you some wins down the stretch. Now, let's move on to the next guy. Rick, this is your man's Justin Jefferson, buy low opportunity. Tell us why we need to go trade for Justin Jefferson.
This is actually probably like the perfect example of a buy low. If you look at like the top receivers the last few years, they always like are consistently putting up double-digit points, right? But then not all of them, but most of the top guys will have 1 or 2 weeks where they just put up like 3 fantasy points. That's what Justin Jefferson did this past week. His first 6 weeks of the season, though, he had 10, 15, 22, 17, 15, 10. So all double-digit point weeks in half PPR. And this week plays against Trayvon Diggs, also got injured in the game, and only gets 4 targets, which is by far the lowest he's had all year, and gets 3 fantasy points. This is a great time to buy him because guess what? He's not getting 4 targets again next week.
Rick,
I can guarantee you that.
Get Justin Jefferson off you.
I
already traded for
him. Yeah, you already took AJ Brown from me, so I think I'm gonna hold on to Jefferson. But it's a great time to trade for a player who's very good and really hasn't even reached what I think he could do this year. He only has 3 touchdowns, similar to Stephon Diggs, who I think only has 3 as well. But both players have been good, but haven't been great because of that. I think Jefferson rest of the season, though, he has a couple tough games in there, but has a couple easy ones as well. I just think coming off a week where he gets 3 fantasy points, you're not going to see that happen again.
Yeah. And this is one of those playoff schedule buys. Like if you're at 7-1, 8-1, you know what I mean? 7. It would be 7-1 because we haven't played that many games. But if you're 7-1 or 8-0, I should say,
even 6-2,
or maybe 6-2 too. But if you're in a position where realistically, when you think about how many wins you need to get to the playoffs, like it's 7 or 8 for the most part. So, like, if you're at that point, Justin Jefferson's a great buy because you don't really need to win a whole ton of games the rest of the season. You could go 500, still make the playoffs. You could go friggin' win 25% of your games and still make the playoffs at that point. And so Justin Jefferson is a great postseason buy because he's got, in week 15, 16, and 17, he's got Chicago, Los Angeles Rams, and then he's got the Green Bay Packers. So it's like, that's an easy stretch of games. And if you go, you look at the first 4 weeks of the season where he had easy matchups, 10, 15, 22, 17. So, I mean, that's a perfect buy for a playoff schedule. And like Rick said, there's some mediocre matchups in here against Detroit, Green Bay, where, you know, Detroit's like lopsided because people blow the doors off them in the first 3 minutes and then they're just running it the whole time. So, I mean, this week against Philadelphia, they threw it 16 times in the game total.
Yeah,
Eagles did. So, the other thing that I think is wrong with the Vikings, really quickly, I've noticed their whole offensive attack has been just screwed up this year for whatever it is, for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Dalvin Cook has been in and out of the lineup, but he's been like, there's been some bad performances from Dalvin Cook, and I ain't giving up on the man. Like, obviously he's a top running back right now. He's probably the RB1 rest of season just because all of the good running backs are hurt.
McCaffrey's coming back this week, bro. Have faith.
What are the chances that I hope he doesn't come back this week. I want the New England Patriots to win, but anyway. But no, I look at every time I watch the Vikings, it's just like it looks like they're having so much trouble moving the ball, and I'm not really sure what the problem is. And hopefully they solve that, because last year, and I think honestly it is them, like their offensive attack has been play action with Kirk Cousins, coming off big runs from Dalvin Cook. And they're not giving Dalvin Cook as much opportunity as they usually do on the ground. I think that changes. I think Cook gets involved in the running game, and that opens things up through the air for guys like Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. And I think that you'll see Justin Jefferson have large amounts of success down the stretch of the season. He was matchup proof last year for the most part in the games that he was performing well, and I think you're going to get the same thing out of him this year. But let's move on to the next guy, Rick. So Mike Williams. This is another, I mean, I feel like after the beginning of the season, you look at Mike Williams and you're like, oh my God, and you rip your pants off for him, right?
Yeah.
And like people get excited. This is a really good buy low opportunity as well. And this is actually, I didn't talk about this on the podcast and I didn't really vocalize it mentally, but I was looking through many of my leagues and these teams with Mike Williams were going absolutely bonkers. They were scoring a lot of fantasy points. They were 3-0, 4-0 because of the great performances from Mike Williams. And I was like, this can't keep up. It just can't. There's no way it's going to keep up. Mike Williams is 27 years old, and he's never consistently been a great wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I was like, there's no way this is going to keep up. And it didn't. First three games of the season, 18, 18, 29. Raiders, 4 targets, 1 catch, 1 point. Cleveland's 32 points. Everyone thought he was back. It was just an anomaly game, right? Last 2 weeks against Baltimore and New England, 3-2. Points, fantasy points.
Yeah.
He hasn't been great.
That's disgusting.
The person that has him is probably reeling. They're probably going, I don't really want Mike Williams. Let's get him off my team. I've been feeling that way. I traded DJ Moore for AJ Brown for that very purpose, because DJ Moore has been, since the first 4 weeks of the season, he's gotten like 7, 9, and like 8, something like that. And it's like, it's just not enough. People are starting Mike Williams right now and getting 3 fantasy points. So the frustration is real, and I think that Mike Williams at this point is going to come in, and I think he's going to be fine rest of the season. I really do. He's after the Philly game, which is a tough matchup. He's got Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Denver, Cincinnati, the Giants, Kansas City, Houston, then Denver again. It's just it's not a hard stretch of games for Mike Williams. There's not one game besides the Philly game in Week 9, which is this week, where I'm like, oh, Mike Williams is going to crap himself. Like, I think he has a good stretch. He can have some really good success. I don't think he's going to get back to that 18, 29, 32 fantasy point like totals that he was putting up. But I think he can get back to that 9-10 target share and get you some decent performances on a week-to-week basis. Yeah,
no, I agree. Well, see, the thing is with Mike Williams, he's going to have bad weeks, but he's also going to have weeks where he's always done this. He's done it more so this year, which is why he was great. But even like last year and years in the past, he's had 25-point weeks before. Like, it's not anything new, or 20-point weeks before as well. So, 32 was insane, where he had 8 catches, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't think he's getting that again, but he's going to have another week where he gets 20 points. He's going to have another week where he gets like maybe even 15 or 20 to 25. Like, he's going to have good weeks. He has had bad weeks in the past before and then bounced back. It's just who he is as a player. He's an inconsistent player. And right now he's on the down, which is a great time to buy him because he's going to go back up. And if you look at those last 2 weeks, he got hurt in the game against the Ravens. He ended up only having a 36% snap percentage. So he barely even played in that game. And he had 5 targets in the first quarter and a half.
Yeah.
So he was still involved. And then against the Patriots, obviously Bill Belichick does a great job of trying to shut down the team's best player. I don't know if he thinks Mike Williams was the team's best player, but they played him very well.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like he was open much. Bill should have shut down Austin Eckler, to be honest, but Patriots run defense isn't that good.
Doesn't really matter. Still won.
Yeah, either way, he struggled against a good team in New England. So
yeah.
It's not like he just laid an egg. The Raiders game actually in week 4, before his 32-point game, was probably the most concerning of the year when he only had 1 catch, 4 targets against a Raiders team that isn't anything crazy. But yeah, going forward, he's got the Eagles, the Vikings, 2 great matchups there. The Steelers is kind of tough. Denver's kind of tough. The Bengals isn't bad. The Giants, the Chiefs, Houston again. So some really good matchups there. It's a very good time to buy a player who is going to go back on the up.
Yeah, I agree. The final guy that we have on this list to complete the show is
my guy.
Is your guy, Nick Chubb. He has been interesting on the season. Yeah. If you want an RB1 that you don't have to pay for as an RB1, this would be the guy.
Yeah.
He, to start the season, had a really good stretch of games. 21, 16, 8, 11, and 23. Then he got hurt, and he had Arizona, Denver, didn't play, and then he played against Pittsburgh this week, 7 fantasy points. The only concern I have with Nick Chubb is that the snap percentages in 2020 were a little bit higher than they are this year, but they're not that much different. So the big thing with Chubb is that he literally is essentially a poor man's Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
And he gets 20 to, he doesn't get like 25 to 30 rushes per game, but he does get 20 carries. And he doesn't really get too much pass catching opportunity. Like, I would be shocked if he hits 20 catches, caught in the season. So in PPR leagues, obviously this is going to be a little bit of a deeper play for you, but it may be easier to buy. But he's a really, really, really good running back. He probably, just pure rushing wise, might be the most talented running back in the NFL. I really like Nick Chubb. Obviously, Rick really likes Nick Chubb. The big thing, he is down the stretch, decent schedule, and he's easy to buy. It's not going to be super easy to buy because this guy
depends on who's in your league, I guess, and who owns him.
Say it again.
It also, I think, depends who owns him in your league, because I think in our home league, there's no chance that I'm going to get him. But in other leagues, I might.
You will try everything to get that guy.
Yes.
But anyway, Nick Chubb is really definitely, he's been a buy low candidate for a couple weeks now, and now that he had a bad game against Pittsburgh, it's clearly definitely a buy low.
Yeah, just get him before Cincy. Kareem Hunt is still out for a while. And it's funny because people were expecting Nick Chubb to go off this week without Kareem Hunt. But Nick Chubb was battling an injury himself, and it was his first game back since the calf injury. So they said they weren't even going to use him that much. He still had 17 touches, which is a lot. But this week against Cincinnati, it's a better matchup. He's fully healthy now. No Kareem Hunt. I could easily see him getting 25 touches, and if he does that, watch out. Yeah.
I definitely agree. And Cincinnati, like Rick said this real fast, but I totally agree with it. It was it's get him before Cincy.
Yeah, get him before Cincy.
If you don't get him before Cincy, you're kind of fricked on trading for him. So
yep.
And I think it's definitely one of those like Josh Jacobs is a good buy because I think he's a good depth play at the running back position. He's going to be a good mid-level RB2 rest of season. Nick Chubb's physically an RB1. He is an RB1 that you can buy right now as if he was a high-end RB2. You know what I mean? And so you're not going to have to spend on him. When he's playing and he's playing well, he's a top 5 running back.
Yep.
And if you can get him for low-end RB2 value, or a high end RB2 value. I'm sorry. So when I say that, like, if you can snag him for like, I'm trying to think of a guy like in like around 10 to 12 in the rankings, like Gibson maybe. I don't think you're gonna be able to pull that off. But either way,
yeah.
If you got a guy that's ranked between 8 and like 12 that you can like trade and essentially with another asset, you can get Nick Chubb. You're not going to have to go out and trade Dalvin.
I think that'll get you. I think that'll 100% get you Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's going to cost as much as it did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So I would definitely do that. But there's your list for trade targets for week 9. Remember, if you would like us to grade your trades, send them in.
Yes, sir.
Maybe we'll just grade trades next week. That I find on
That'd
the
be kind
internet.
of funny.
That would be hilarious. But anyway, football this weekend. Enjoy it. Good luck. Get some dubs. See you later, guys.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.